Hey everybody, me back with another video, and I don't want to be in this video, so I am focusing on my laundry money bag. I am having to take my clothes to the laundromat because my dryer is not working. We don't need to mention why I don't have a new dryer, because we all know that Maria has been out of work for a very long time. Yeah, I just had to throw that jab in there, Anyway, I wanted to talk about understanding the meaning of employment laws, and that they're not just statements placed on employment ads and reiterated in handbooks. There's meaning and reason behind them. And there's also, people should try to understand the meaning and instruction in employee manuals. Many of the employees that participated in this, I'm referring to people who were in charge of hiring, employees, various employees in different agencies, cable installers, and those who participated, were most likely warned not to commit these actions in the first place. There's a lot of information in, new hire orientation packets, handbooks that talk about these issues, these very issues, things that relate to the use of the company computer. Now, some of the family-owned businesses, I don't expect to see this sort of stuff, but like some of the more established businesses that may have been involved, like some agencies and some of the big-name companies, although I usually don't really apply for a lot of big-name companies, but a lot of them are very organized and structured, and I think they're very well-intentioned, because they try to write and cover a lot of information in their employee handbooks. But I think there's a problem initiating it, and maybe people not really taking it home and reading it as they're supposed to. And so, I know in company handbooks, a lot of them talk about, being very careful with the company use of the company computer. In this case, you don't want to engage in any illegal activity using the company computer. Basically, if anybody sent you an email talking about, blacklisting me or preventing me from employment or manipulating my employment or anything like that, this is on your company computer, okay? And there is no getting rid of that. So my point is that, you need to make sure employees fully understand what that means, what it means. I mean, I know there's a lot, like, you might have maybe 200 pages in your handbook, and so you're going to count on that employee, take that handbook home and then sign it and say that they read it. Well, I know a lot of people who don't, okay? They don't do it. And so certain things that just cannot be ignored needs to be highlighted first, I think, and then give them the employee packet and then have them sign it or something like that, because, or maybe summarize, the most important things, highlight them verbally, and then also give them the handbook too, because a lot of the stuff is either ignored, and if it's ignored and they already know, then they violated a company policy. And if they didn't know, and now they know, like I said, if you want to one thing to be ignorant, but to continue to do that, that's corruption. Also, rules are usually relating to company time. You're wasting time manipulating employment, especially for harassment purposes, or participating in some form of stalking or whatever. It's company time, and it's illegal. And of course, participating in any act that may damage or undermine a company. All these things are usually generalized in company handbooks. And I want to say to the community that I live in, to the mayor and the law enforcement agencies in this town, that my reasons are not to stir the pot, not at all. I want to get on with this, and I've been trying to just move on in peace for the longest time. But this is to improve human relations in commerce, okay? This is not based on race or anything like that. It's based on just being a human being in general, okay? I'm a living example as to why laws, policies, and procedures should not be ignored, okay? So as I mentioned before, you can view this as a form of philanthropy if that's what you want to do. There is a lot to learn from this, and as I mentioned, it should be studied in learning institutions. It should be initiated in schools and workplaces. This covers so many issues based on reasons behind my ill treatment, race, religion, and sexism. And it's basically all of the things that are relating to discriminatory laws that are written within the employment law. Okay, so the very things that equal opportunity in companies were supposed to uphold in this situation. So the very things that equal opportunity companies were supposed to uphold They didn't do that. They were completely either ignoring it, getting caught up in the herd mentality, and blatantly disregard for the law, whatever. And the problem here, I believe, is that many people don't necessarily see the relatedness of things. They may not. How can I say this? Like maybe, for example, the mottos that they see so often that is overly repeated, like they may to these people just be meaningless words on an application. We all see, in small writing on like applications, and then also some of the employer logos. Even if you look underneath it, it'll say, we are an equal opportunity employer. We don't discriminate against blah 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 blah, so on and so on. But they don't really realize what that means. They just think maybe it's just a standard saying, but really they need to slow down and really understand what those things mean. And that's exactly what happened here, is why that's written on there. It's there for people's protection, the general protection of everyone. That means it's trying to make the employment platform equal for everyone, for regardless of whatever reasons. Because we're hoping that, and when you follow those rules and those laws, you're going to hire quality people. You're basing it on their skills, nothing else. Their skills, their ability to do their job. So it's there for the protection of both parties. It's there for the protection of the company as well as the employee. Okay, so there's a lot of talk about sexual harassment in the workplace. I mentioned this before, and it's so much so that these forms are usually a part of the orientation new hire packet. And they're repeated training requirements for managers. They talk about sexual harassment all the time. And yeah, I would say that it's a very common thing. There's been a lot of lawsuits relating to that. But I would say most of the harassment that typically occurs on a daily basis, so naturally and so commonplace, are the ones that relate to the federal and state discrimination laws. So many times I've had people, initiate conversations with me that I believe are racially charged, whether they realize it or not, and especially when it comes from people like management, and like I said, monkey see, monkey do, okay? And people immediately follow the behavior of the leader. It's just pack mentality, okay? It's a part of nature, and it's something that people need to realize, that what they do affects the people around them. So people in management need to be, if they're not an upstanding citizen now, it's something that you should work on. You should really work on your ethics, your moral codes, and your behavior. You have to do that in order to have a successful work environment and to retain employees. So anyway, okay, I would like for you to check out this link listed on the bottom of this video and share with your employees. This is relating to workplace mobbing. All workplace mobbing, gang stalking, and just being a TI in general. These are all directly related to this sort of nonsense, the workplace bullying. And like I said, this little link will help you understand why a workplace environment, peaceful environment, is essential to not only your workplace, your company, but also to a community. Because this little issue in the workplace ventured out into the community, and then it spread out through other towns. This is a major form of harassment, and it can create a damage to a lot of people, to a person, mostly the person, me, in this situation. It is life-threatening, and that's the reason why we have laws. So this is my point. When I was arguing about this months ago, look at some of the videos I made in the past, okay? I was talking about this issue, and maybe people thought that this was a competitive game, and this is what happens in herd mentality. They start thinking that this is a game. I want to beat Maria. I want to do this. I want to do that. It's not a game, okay? These laws are in place because of herd mentality, to prevent what has happened to me. I'm an example. Like I said, this really needs to be talked about. So I have been sending some of my resumes to agencies that I've been burned by in the past, and I expect to be treated fairly and assisted just like any other applicant. My skills are excellent, and I know I can put in the time and the effort, and I'm a great candidate. So based off of these things, and this is what you're supposed to be doing anyway. Now I'm willing to do just about any kind of accounting job. I enjoy accounting, okay, and it has to be in alignment with my goals. That's the law. That's my dream. I'm entitled to that. I am entitled to that. And so, my goals are to stay in accounting and evolve from that point. and that's just the way it is. It's my right as an American citizen. And this is not any form of rebellion. It's not a slap in the face to my family because they choose to be housewives or whatever. That is not a slap on the. It has nothing to do with that. It's about sustaining my life and knowing that I have skills and wanting to use those skills to make a living, so I can have food and shelter and have a proper burial when it's time. Okay, it has nothing to do with me competing against anybody. Good grief. Okay, so anyway, before I close, I want to talk about how many of these bogus job interviews are subtle forms of harassment, and hopefully they don't occur again. Okay, so when I go in for a job interview, I expect that my resume has already been reviewed. Okay, the time length of my employment, the skills listed on my resume show that I know my job. Now, even when I was at an entry-level position, I was never given pop quizzes during my interview, okay? Never. If standardized tests were required, they were taken, and once the test score was revealed, and then also, of course, the information listed on my resume, the interview would take place, and it was based on, like, for example, okay, I know that you know accounts payable. How many invoices have you usually processed through the week? Okay, so I know you do receivables. How many customers? How did you manage the aging, were you successful? Are you comfortable with making these? It's already understood, okay? Why would you call somebody in for a job interview if you are questioning their ability? That's why they send you the resume in the first place, to list the skills here. You know what they can do, okay? Now, if you have a test, a standardized test, you take the test. It's confirmed already, so the pop quiz needs to end. It's antagonistic, and I don't know if, and I'm not trying to say this to offend people, it's just that, you know what, I've been through a lot of harassment, and like I said, all this happened right after leaving this particular employer. I have never been asked questions like that. Like I said, even when I was just starting out in accounting, never asked questions like that. They either looked at what I could do on my resume, and then they discussed, the job, the work environment at the interview or whatever. I was never asked questions like, how long have you been doing Excel? How'd you learn it? I just think that's annoying. And I think that's a part of stalking, okay? I don't want to see any more signs of stalking. I just don't want to see it. It's disturbing. It's extremely disturbing. And like I said, it's life-threatening. Okay, let's see here. Generalized questions. Okay, yeah, I already touched on that. Volume technique. Yeah, and when you have an interview, you basically, you don't call in applicants. You receive all the resumes. You look at their skills and the qualifications. Say, yeah, this is what I need. I'm going to bring this person in. We're going to talk about the job. Okay. And you talk about the job. You talk about it. I mean, if you have to bring them in, obviously you have to have an interview process, okay? But you're supposed to select the top candidates before you actually bring them in, and it's already understood that they have the skills that you're looking for, okay? It's just that simple. So I find it a little threatening, and to me it's a form of harassment to be asked those questions, especially because after what has happened to me. And when I have job interviews, I can just feel, I'm already sick to my stomach having to go through these job interviews, and so I can feel like it's taking a lot for me to even walk through the door to have a job interview at this point. After all of this, the trauma, and then to be asked questions like that, it's like, oh God, here it comes, and then I feel like I have to stare at the person who's harassing me, and I have to put up with that. I don't want to put up with that anymore. The interviews should be structured. Obviously, I know how to do my job. I've been doing this for almost 19 years now. I've been taking tests all over this town, and that's why we have job references. You say, hey, would you rehire this person? Yeah, I would rehire this person. This person knows how to do their job. If I held down a job for if I've been holding down a job for 4 years, for example, okay, one of the jobs listed on there I had for 4 years, okay, I would say all the jobs listed on my resume, except for those silly little temp ones, I've had for more than 2 to 3 years, okay? Don't sit there and try to assume that just because there's such a thing called affirmative action, that I just got lucky enough to get a seat in a workplace, and I basically coasted on affirmative action because that's a lot of BS, okay? This girl works hard, and I have earned every penny that I have ever had, okay? And so, no, Maria knows her job, okay? I've already proven it, and when people treat me that way, it does seem like a form of harassment, and it seems kind of like a racial harassment, because I think people are, they might be so maybe impressed or in awe or like, amazed that a black person could actually be intelligent, and that in itself is offensive, okay? There's a lot of things that we are raised to believe that aren't true, okay? There's no Santa Claus, there's no Easter Bunny. Everything that you've heard about other races it's a form of propaganda. It really is. It's a form of propaganda. I'm not saying that, you have to accept people, you have to love them, you have to marry them. You don't, okay? But, the thing is that you've been told a lie, okay? You've basically been told a lie. And, and it's always been that way, okay? There's always been intelligent black people. There will always be intelligent black people. And the reason why you don't see them is because you've been watching too much television. And you like to assume that, people are inferior to yourself. And I think a lot of people do that. Like, for example, I like sewing. And I don't think of other people who don't like sewing as inferior. I just think that I'm very happy and content with doing that as a hobby. And I tend to generate towards or favor other people who sew. Okay, as far as who I have in my collective circle or whatever. So it's something that we do, and it doesn't, the whole idea of being overly shocked or surprised that someone of another race has skills and abilities is silly. And if you look throughout history, there's been a lot of black inventors, a lot of black people who've done things. We've been in science, we've been in accounting for many, many years, and, in other industries. And so there's black astronomers, there's black physicists. I mean, it's there, okay? It's just that you live in a bubble and you haven't been exposed, or it's just never occurred to you to ever think outside the box or consider that possibility. It's propaganda. It's propaganda. Just like, I was told when I was younger that Asian people ate, not by my family, but just by people in general, that Asian people ate dogs. Now, some of them do, okay, but not all of them do. And, like, for example, I hear a lot of stereotypes about Asian people all being smart. I would say that I met a lot of smart ones, but I've met quite a few dummies myself. It's just these things are stereotypes. And, even though, especially in the workplace, I'm sure you've seen all kinds of, training or whatever, and I know during high school or elementary age, and you've probably seen a lot of after-school specials trying to talk and teaching people about, stereotypes and how they're not real and how it's true, okay? But sometimes people just default and they fall back on these negative patterns. Well, like I said, I'm tired of people's ignorance getting in the way of my means of survival, and that's not to say that to be mean. It's just saying is, okay, open your eyes, realize that that's not true. You don't have to be my best friend, but you do have to accept the fact that I have the right to live my life. And like I said, when I walk out the store, I don't want to see any more signs of this anymore. I don't. You may not like me, you don't have to like me, but you don't have to harass people either. You have to respect life, and I've never done anything to anybody in this town or anywhere else, really. I don't try to promote racial intolerance, or I don't even try to promote my race. I hate it when people say things like, you're a credit to your race. Okay, don't get me wrong, maybe they mean it as a compliment, whatever. But, I'm just trying to sit here and pay my bills, okay? I never, this has nothing to do with that, and that's not in the back of my mind. It's just not, and people always assume that. Maybe because, once again, they're projecting their own personal feelings onto me. Like, for example, if that's what they believe, they might believe that, any accomplishment that they do is a credit to their race. Well, I just don't think of it that way. And if it is, well, I guess, but, I mean, that's not my first goal. I mean, that's, it's just not. So, And I don't think it is with anybody, but everybody gets accused of that, and that gets like really tiresome. It's like, people do things for their own personal pleasure too. I mean, it's just, it gets tiring. It really, really does. And so, anyway, so, today's Friday, and, I'm trying to hold off making phone calls as much as I possibly can. I don't want to make it sound as though I'm trying to bother people or irritate people. It's just that, in order to do a job search, you have to go out. You have to contact people. You just have to, and it is the way. And eventually, I have to emerge from the world sometime, and I don't need to be harassed while I'm doing it. So, anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video. Like I said, please check out the link at the bottom and share it with your employees. And, I know you guys have to think about this, okay? And you might be thinking, well, I don't see why this has to happen. I'm going to tell you, I'm the living example of why it has to happen. All these targeted individuals that you're seeing and you're hearing about, and there's a lot of them, not just here in the United States, in other countries as well. And this is almost like a form of the Holocaust. It really is. It is destructive, and it is destroying the lives of many people. And it's something that really needs to be talked about. It needs to be considered. Okay, it is a very dangerous situation to be in, and you're playing with somebody's life. And if I put it in those ways, if I put it in those terms, I'm hoping that you'll understand what this is, okay? And I'm sure a lot of people during, the times in Nazi Germany, they may not have really understood the impact of what was really going on, But to me, I see that there's a similarity here, and it is the destruction. You can't round people up, put them in gas chambers. You can't do this sort of stuff. So you're enacting your rage, your anger, your frustration out on a person in an alternative form that you couldn't have carried out before. That is what I'm talking about. It is dangerous, okay? So let this be a lesson in everywhere that it can be, because this shouldn't happen to anyone else again. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.